Happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org and this show in particular. Correct me if I'm Norm. I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with a special guest. He's a professor emeritus at the University of Albany, president and CEO of WAMC Northeast Public Radio since 1981, Adam Schartoff. Alan, you don't even look old enough to have that resume.
Looks can be deceiving. See, now I had a sense that this might happen, so I didn't interrupt you.
What gave you that sense?
I listened to your show before.
Oh, you did. It is actually Adam Schartoff. But the first time I heard your name, I thought, oh, the codger from AMC, the curmudgeonly codger.
Yeah.
And they said, no, that's a whole different thing.
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Are you related to Adam Schartoff? And I said, well, we have different last names, but it's possible.
But apart from that,
yeah, exactly,
and different first names and different spellings and all that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry you get that a lot. I can't help but to beat the tired old jokes.
And I'm sorry to disappoint your audience. Yeah, I've actually been looking forward to Adam Schartoff.
Not disappointing me.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious to have him here. Well, Adam Schartoff, thanks for being here. Adam is the host of America's favorite podcast featuring luminaries from the indie film community. It's called Filmwax Radio, and it's great. I listened to a bunch of episodes.
Thank you.
And it's really fun and pleasant. And I wonder, how did you start Filmwax Radio?
Well, thanks. And by the way, when I describe it as Norm, by the way, thank you for inviting me on. And I'm really excited. I was looking forward to doing your show. I love it. When I say your favorite podcast, is that what I said?
Yeah.
I meant of all of the interview shows or podcasts that interview luminaries. This is your favorite podcast. This is
America's favorite.
America's favorite of those in that category, not of all podcasts. Let's be clear. I don't actually,
Are there many that sort of specialize in indie film?
Wisely, no, because there's, as much money as there is in indie film, there's a little less in podcasts
about indie film.
Yeah, but when I started it. And I guess getting back to your question, when I started it, there were so few podcasts compared to now. I mean, a fraction that, and I don't think there was another interview. There were other film podcasts, more like reviewing.
Right.
People would get together and talk about a particular film, and but I don't think there was like an interview show specifically with independent filmmakers and other actors and other people from casts and crews or industry types. So to get to your question about how it started, back in 2011, I was living in Park Slope, and
in Utah.
That's right, the one in Utah, often mistaken for.
Yeah.
We're right. Not Park City, but Park Slope.
Uh-huh.
So I was living in Park Slope, and a friend of mine had a bar right on Fifth Avenue in the South Slope. And in the back room, he installed a really good projector. And so I said to him, I'm sort of, around the film people a lot. I write film reviews and I go to a lot of film festivals and stuff. And I thought, why don't we do like a series here? Like I'll invite filmmakers that I know from the area and I'll start a film series. And he loved the idea on Sunday afternoons when the bar was empty anyway.
Right.
So we started a film series in the back room. It held maybe 20, 25 people the most. And I just started showing a film like on Sunday afternoons. And I was just arbitrarily chose the name Filmwax. It didn't mean anything. It kind of has developed into like waxing about film, I suppose. But it was like just started as a film series. And then shortly after I started the film series, I met folks sort of like these guys here with us who are running Radio Free Rhinecliff. The internet radio show platform was called Bebox Radio, and they're out of Brooklyn, and they were just starting up. And they invited me to join like Gen 1, the first crop of hosts, and they said, why don't you promote your film series and invite people on? And so it started with that, but very quickly it just I realized I could invite anybody on this, So
right.
And then So it was internet radio, which is kind of exciting because I'm back doing internet radio, which I kind of like that idea. And then it just sort of evolved into a podcast and yada, yada, and I just started inviting everybody on. I didn't just make it about my series, and that ended anyway, more or less. So that's the origin story.
The series, which was just movies and...
Yeah, I invited... There's so many I'm sure you know, there's so many filmmakers in Brooklyn. I mean, the
and the Hudson Valley.
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely true. And but I would make this, joke like you can't walk to the deli without running into a filmmaker in Brooklyn, which is kind of true. So, and a lot of them had rough cuts also of their film. They were getting ready to submit it to festivals, and they wanted to get feedback and stuff. And I would host those screenings and things of that nature. So there was and it endeared me to the community so much so. And I just started getting kind of this reputation as somebody who was a real champion of independent film between the film series and then the subsequent podcast, Filmwax Film Series and Filmwax Radio, as I called it at the time. I was always promoting and championing independent films, which need it. They don't have a marketing budget, not like a studio film, not even a fraction. So they really, I became this entity, down in Brooklyn. Yeah. And now in the Hudson Valley.
That's nice. And when did you leave Brooklyn and come here?
I guess 2020, I definitely was something I had already had in mind for a while before 2020. And I went to BARD for a while, way back. So I knew the area. And then I was coming up to the Woodstock Film Festival every year. And because I just love the area. And, I love what the festival does, the Woodstock Film Festival. And and I had some friends up in the area. So it was an area I was familiar with. And I just thought about 2018, 19, I got to get out of New York soon as I can. And my son was about to graduate high school a year later, 2021. But the pandemic and the lockdown, I don't know what you went through, but I was just like, I can't handle this in New York City. I was in a rut, and I really needed a major change in my life. So I thought, why not do it? Everybody's rediscovering themselves those first months of the lockdown.
Right.
And so I took full advantage of that, and I just decided my dad died in that period, and I was really bumming out, and I just was like, I gotta do this. We'll figure out everything else, and so I did that.
Hats off to you for doing that. I mean, that's quite a move, and it sounds like you didn't have a lot of people up here, support system and stuff. A
few. No, nobody really close, but I knew some people, and there were people up here I didn't even know I knew. So,
right,
like Jen, for instance, here.
Jen Hammoud, who's the producer of this show.
Yeah.
And how do you know her?
Well, this is I'll try to keep this brief. Jen, if you want to pipe in, feel free. But Andy Ostroy, has a show. So I have an independent film podcast. So I actually just coincidentally or separate from Radio Free Rhinecliff, I invited Andy onto my podcast, Filmwax, to plug Shelley, his documentary about his late wife, the actress Adrienne Shelley. And he came on. And then some months later, I got another email through a publicist that Andy had a podcast called The Back Room, which we're sitting in right now. And so...
No, we're sitting in the Nook.
Oh, in the Nook? Is that
He's
the
got
nickname?
The Back Room, yeah. I've got the Nook. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got to come up. Jeez, now I got to come up with my... Let's see, shoebox.
Cubbyhole. Yeah, shoebox.
Cubbyhole. It's small but cozy. And Andy... so I got him... I was going to get him on a second time to talk about his podcast, which I really enjoyed. And so... at that point, and coming up to the podcast, getting our scheduling ready, he says, by the way, were you a camp counselor in the 80s? And it was like, oh no, because I'm always 1 degree of separation from somebody from this camp, this hippie, liberal, progressive summer camp.
What was it called?
Camp Thoreau, Thoreau.
Camp Thoreau.
Thoreau in Vermont.
Well, they were because it was originally in Ulster County in Wallkill, New York, and then it split off. There was a bifurcation, and so one group went up to Vermont, and I ended up saying, "Oh, I'd like to try Vermont." So I went up to Vermont. That's how I met Jen. She was a camper. I became a counselor. And
it's a family show, by the way.
Yeah. Listen, I know.
It was one of the 10 known.
Yeah.
I don't. I honestly said I don't remember her from those years because I was a young, strapping young lad of 18. I was college age, and I was a camp counselor. And my area of focus at that camp was female camp counselors.
Sure, yeah.
And playing the guitar,
which is a good female camp counselor bait. Playing the guitar.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. But that's another podcast.
No, that could be this one.
You're right. I've heard your show. So, and by the way, I wanted to get this out of the way at the beginning. I have a gift for you.
Oh, no.
Because I always believe in bearing gifts. And I think you're going to love this.
Okay, good.
Since it's a film podcast, so I had a second copy of a movie I think you probably love.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
All right.
Here it is. I'm handing it to him. He can.
I'm not even looking at it. I just want to say first, I love that you speculated I would love this. My Dinner with Andre. I do love this movie.
You do?
In fact, I really do. I love this movie so much. And I rewatched it during the pandemic.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if it. Where'd you see it? Did you just rent it?
Yeah, I think I rented like YouTube movies or something.
Okay. Well, here you have your own Criterion collection version of it.
I love it. Thank
Somehow
you so
I
much.
landed with two versions, so
Yeah.
I didn't want to forget to give that to you. But I thought, this is a guy that loves to talk, I can tell, as I do.
Yeah.
And it's about two guys sitting across from each other, much like we are, talking.
It's such an amazing movie. I saw it when it came out in the theaters.
Yeah.
I lived on the Upper West Side, and it was in one of the art houses there.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. Everybody loved it back then. Well, thank you so much.
Groundbreaking. You're welcome. Enjoy
What a
it.
sweet gift. And score, I was like, oh, he's going to bring me Terminator 7 or something. And then I'll be like,
When they
you
make
thought
it, I
I'd
will
like
bring it.
that. Wow. Well, so we just covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And I'm totally lost.
We were talking about the summer camp at.
Oh, yes.
That was a big. But that is
Thank
actually.
you. I love this.
That actually for Jen and I, for anybody who went there, and this is not to make people feel excluded. I'm very sensitive about other people's feelings, but there's a connection and a bond and an understanding. It's like about this special place that was created such a strong community and with such great values, as well as just an affection, that it was okay to be whomever you were when you were there. You would leave, home, come there, and everybody just loved you for who you were. There was a sense of, complete acceptance. So you could not reinvent yourself, but actually be your authentic self there. And then when you go home, you make the modifications to fit in and to kind of cope and all that stuff. But so it's hard getting home sometimes, and you just look forward to the next summer so much. So I was there for years as a camper, and then I went back to be a camp counselor.
Wow.
And it really has an impact. I'm still friends with, dozens of people from many years.
How many years total were you there?
I was just there one summer. No, I'm kidding. I was there, 1972. I was 8 years old, divulging my age here, till about 77. And then I was in Wallkill, so people listening nearby, not too far. And then I did go up to Vermont. And that was throughout the 80s. I didn't go every summer, but I went most summer. And then I went one more time in 1990. And and I sensed, I shouldn't. This is my time is. I need to move on. But I didn't mean the friendships and the reunions continued.
Right.
So for the most
how
part.
many years did the two of you overlap?
One maybe, or two.
Yeah, a couple of years. Oh.
Yeah, Jen.
Yeah,
You said 1981. I was not there that
I was either
summer.
81 or 82, and then I was there
Right.
for 3 years as a counselor and a dishwasher.
So no, we did overlap.
And then my
You
brother,
were a counselor.
you made a guest appearance when my brother was there.
And
He's 5 years younger.
Were you counselors at the same time?
No,
Wait a minute. But
I was a dishwasher.
okay, but what year? Do you remember? That's a lot to try to remember. It doesn't matter. We overlapped in the sense that if we weren't there,
85.
yeah, I was there that summer.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I have an uncanny memory now for. You can name a time or a place. I know exactly what I was doing.
Wow.
I don't know why I have. It's not quite the skill that. What's her name? Marilu Henner has, but you know about her.
No.
You don't know about Marilu Henner?
No.
I don't remember. Look it up if you could, Jen. There's a name for this. whatever this thing she has, she can recall anything, any day in her life, anything, what she was wearing, who she was with, any day. You just name it. She'll tell you what day of the week it was.
I'm not sure I would like that. Mercifully, I've forgotten the most embarrassing parts.
Oh, no. I think it's much harder to have something like that. I think it is. Yeah.
That's kind of interesting. That would make a good movie.
She's done a lot of interviews about it, and she's written about it. And,
right.
Yeah.
So you were at camp there. You said at one point you were college age. Did you go to college? You said
did.
earlier you spent some time at Bard.
Well, because of the camp thing, Bard seemed like 1981 or 2. It seemed like the ideal place. It was very small, liberal arts, very, again, like what's the word? Not counterculture, although there was that history to it, of course. But where I just would fit in. And at the beginning, it did feel like that. But very soon, I found Bard. At the time, it was Leon Botstein's second year there, maybe. And he was like, a kid. And
wait, so he's been there like 40 some years?
Yeah. He was the youngest college professor in the country when he was hired. College president, what did I say? Yeah, I think he was the college president. Yeah, in 1980, he started in like 80 or 81. Yeah, he was the youngest one ever hired or ever.
Wow.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. And then but I found the place just too small even for me. So I left Bard after my first year, and I regret it a little bit because, in retrospect, I think it would have been probably a good thing to stay, and it disrupted my whole momentum college-wise. So I never quite got back in step with it, and I went back at CUNY Hunter, and I enjoyed it, but I would need money, or I need to, something would happen, and I would stop, and it was just a mistake. You got to do for something like me. Got to see it, and you just got to plow through it. Otherwise, you'll never finish.
And did you eventually finish?
No. To this day, I have no college degree, so I'm thinking about going back to Bard. My girlfriend works there. So.
That'd be kind of nice.
Yeah. I would.
If you did go back to Bard, what would you finish with a degree
maybe
in?
Film history or something. I thought I would love that.
And way back when, what were you studying?
History.
Okay.
Yeah, like American history.
Right. Film history.
Yeah. I really enjoyed. I enjoyed it, and I love reading and learning. So.
And so you went back to Hunter, which is a pretty good college.
I think it still is.
And never quite got in step with all of that. And were you? You said somewhere that you were raised on the mean streets of Queens.
Forest Hills. It's a joke.
Forest Hills.
There are mean streets in Queens. Trust me, there are.
But not Forest Hills.
No, not Forest Hills. Yeah, I had on my podcast John Leguizamo, who grew up in Queens, roughly the same time I did. We're roughly the same age, and he came on my podcast. That was a great opportunity again to have him on twice actually, and I joked because he grew up in Jackson Heights, and I said, I grew up on the mean streets of Forest Hills, and he thought that was the funniest thing because he goes, well, get the hell out of here, Forest Hills mean streets. He goes, we still always want to live there, because it was like the nice area.
Oh yeah.
So we lived in a modest house really near Queens Boulevard, but then there are the Forest Hills Gardens. You've been there, so it looks like it did 300 years ago or 200 years ago. It's completely historically landmarked, and they even have the original lamps from hundreds of years ago. Right. I assume they replaced the gas light with electric, but it's beautiful there in cobblestone, a lot of cobblestone streets and beautiful buildings. And I went to went to grade school there, and we lived, near the subway stop by the Queens Boulevard in a relatively simple townhouse type of. Right. But it was a nice place to grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I heard a little bit about that, and I listened to a couple of your podcasts.
Thank you.
With filmmakers, and I was like, wow, I love this guy. You've got a very pleasant demeanor and lovely interviewing style.
Thank you.
And I also listened to the podcast with your dad.
Oh my God, you heard that?
Yeah, I heard it was an hour and 20 minutes or something, talking about living there and growing up there and his stuff.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was interesting. It was a whole different you. Did you listen to that after you had done it?
I'm sure I did, but I didn't. But I probably wasn't thinking too much about it. From that perspective, You know what I mean? It was Father's Day that year, whatever year it was.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, it's funny because I noticed that my girlfriend does a story slam. So she's kind of, among other things, she's a teacher as well, but she does the story slam up here. And she had her parents were in from Denmark, and she did the same thing. She recorded these conversations about growing up and what, because I don't know, did you ever do that?
I did.
Norm?
I did. Like maybe 20 years ago, I recorded my dad, his sister, her husband, and grandma.
And this is obviously you didn't have like a talk show then, or
No,
did you?
no, I didn't.
But
I wish I had.
Right, but you were. But the compulsion.
Well, you know what? They were all together. He had the compulsion to get sort of the family story.
Right.
And it was great hearing them laugh and chat and talk about stuff. And one of the things Grandma said just killed me. She said she grew up in rural Iowa. Uh-huh. She said, well, of course, we didn't have electricity back then. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? But it was a blast, and it was simply fun to hear you and your dad sort of recount all of the history of the family and the different places you lived.
It was not my aunt, my dad's sister, his younger sister. You may recall one story where my father and his younger brother were constantly under the vigilant eye of my grandmother. Like she just was a control freak. She was a very loving woman, but she was depressed.
Right.
She couldn't drive. She was stuck in the middle of this rural, I mean, I don't know if it was quite bucolic, but it was definitely, if you didn't have a car and you didn't have to drive, you were stuck at home.
Yeah.
And she had these two boys who demanded, they were both rapscallions. And, she fell into a depression. And in fact, my grandfather moved the family to Morristown, which was like a real village, a real town, into a family member, like some cousin's place. I don't know the exact specifics, but they moved. So my grandmother.
What year is this?
Oh, this would have been in the 40s.
Okay.
Yeah. So they would be close, probably wartime. So they would be closer to family and things, So it did help my grandmother. Then my grandmother ended up getting pregnant again, and she just was praying and praying for a little girl, just praying, and she got one. And her whole
how many boys,
outlook completely, she just became, she didn't give a damn about the guys anymore. They could play all night long, come home at like 1 a.m. She didn't, I'm exaggerating a little, but her whole focus was now on my Aunt Cindy. So when my aunt heard me and my dad talking about this, she got a bit upset because she thought it was too private.
Well, how many boys had she had?
2.
Okay.
2.
And she finally got a little girl.
And she got her girl, and my Aunt Cindy's alive and well, and yeah.
And Cindy thought that you were sort of talking out of school, sharing these family stories.
Yeah. So, but I thought that's silly, and everybody else in the family thought it was great. And but I think, now that you're reminding me about that particular episode, I think it was also my mother continues to, in fact, suffer with a very advanced dementia. And I think when I recorded that particular conversation with my dad, it was not long after she was moved out of the apartment. So my dad, not to get too dark here, but my dad, I think, was in a kind of a depression.
Right.
He would never have admitted it, but I think he was really struggling. I know he was. And he was, what's the expression? He was sort of, he had lost his grounding, his...
right. Underwater.
Yeah, well, he was just a little bit... at odds. Let's put it that way. So I think I was trying to connect with him a little bit and get into the conversation, about it. And I also recorded throughout my mom's decline. I would take these short videos because I felt like I needed to be able to. I don't know. I think I just needed to record it, to have it, to capture this period. I can't look at, it's almost impossible for me to look at it because the worst thing, anybody's gone through this knows the worst period is the decline. Once they're like catatonic, essentially, it is what it is. It's horrible, but they're not suffering anymore. Not like they are when they're in decline. So, I could never show it to my father. He would have just not been able to watch it. And it's very hard to watch my mother because she's full of anxiety and.
But that interview was a long time ago. I mean, it sounds like your mom's had the dementia for a long, long time.
Really long time. It's the worst. It's like the worst case you hear about, where it's going on and on year after year, and she just holds on, and she just lives. I mean, it's a remarkable thing. She's remarkable. She's strong,
right?
But she doesn't communicate. She's completely senile. Yeah, it's terrible.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's the worst thing in my life. I mean, it's just, I don't wish it on anybody,
Yeah. My dad passed away from dementia, Lewy body dementia. But it was,
that's what Robin Williams had, right?
Started progressing. It went pretty fast, and then he went quickly.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. I'm not glad to hear he got that or that he died, but I'm glad it was quick for you and him. But Robin Williams had that, Louis Barr, right? Louis Barry.
Louis Body.
Louis Body, that's what it's called. Yeah, he had that too.
I didn't know that. Wow, well, I'm so sorry you're dealing with that. And where is Mom now?
On the mean streets of Forest Hills.
I say that's nice. One of the things that killed me...
she's in a nursing home.
Because I recorded my dad. I videotaped him, in sort of the last month of his life. And he was gone. He was hallucinating and stuff. But he still had the same voice. It was Dad's voice and Dad's face, just this different thing inside.
Yeah. Well, it's the only thing I can say is it changes your perspective. Everybody has difficulties with their parents. Everybody has complicated relationships with their parents, and you hold on to things, and then the moment that you see that they're completely helpless, it all vanishes. And so the first thought that came to me anyway was, if it just vanished like that, why was I holding on to the stuff for so long? It was so easy to let it go and just unconditionally love her, right, and want to take care of her. And that's all there was. And I was like, well, what happened to all that other stuff that I was holding on to and kind of holding over her, when we were together, right, and always kind of like bitching about or feeling, like resentment about all those things.
Sure. And you've got a kid of your own, right?
Yes.
Who's how old? College age?
Yes, he just and in fact he applied to Bard, which is kind of funny because it's the only college he applied to. I'm sure there'll be others, but he took a gap year and then he applied to Bard College, and because he visited there and he liked it, and just thought that was pretty funny. That's
so sweet.
Yeah, I would love that.
You live nearby, so he's been exposed to it. It's a beautiful campus.
Yes, and it's grown so much, and my God, yeah. And his mother, who is an actress, was in a play there. I'm going to guess about 7-8 years ago. And so he was there. It was during the summer, and so he and his half sister lived on the Bard campus for like a whole summer some years ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What fun. And were you living there at the time as well?
No, I was still down in New York, the city. Yeah. So, and that's where his mother is, or has an apartment. So my son is in Brooklyn.
And I got to ask, does she act in indie films?
Not a lot. No, she's kind of more of a mainstream actor. She's pretty well. I mean, her star has been on the rise. She's in 2 pretty big series actually, in the cast,
right.
2 major series right now.
Oh, nice. Can you say what they are?
I can. One is called The Morning Show, which is on the Apple TV Plus streaming with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. She's in it, and then she's like a secondary role compared to that, but it's primary cast. And then she's also in the new Sex and the City show.
Wow, I didn't even know there was a new Sex and the City show.
Oh, you're disappointing me.
I'm sorry.
I brought the wrong DVD. Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in that, and most people know her. They watch that. She's got a big role on that show too. So she's really doing well right now, which is great considering she's not even the ingenue age.
Right.
So that's great that she's able to have that success. I wish her the best.
Yeah, me too. That's good. So I wanted to ask about your other job, which is on the radio on WKZE.
Yeah.
What do you do there?
I am I do 2 things. I'm one of the few full-time people there. So I'm on air from 10 to 3 weekdays. I call it the midday show.
Uh-huh.
And this is a music station. So, you're back selling, they call it songs. So you come on and you just talk about the last song that just played, and you go backward a few songs and you explain, kind of like what played, and then also you do chat, and sometimes I'm hoping to do a feature, which is like doing a little mini show among during my shift, which is which they like the idea. So I'm going to start soon, I hope, which is like about music and film. So I would do a different maybe subject each time. But
Wow.
right, I'm not doing that yet.
And would that be just you, or would you have guests on?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Because when you say you do a little chat, I mean, there's usually just
chatter,
one
I'm
DJ.
talking, yeah, but I guess because you have a relationship with your audience, so even though they're not responding, you're talking to somebody, so it feels sort of like you have to kind of think about that there's a person on the other end of the radio, one person, and so you're talking to them. That's how I was kind of, I guess, trained to do. This is new. I mean, podcasting I've been doing for 12 years. I mean, I've been talking into the microphone too, but being on the radio is a different kind of set of muscles, and a very different set of muscles, even though you think it's so similar. And there are similarities, but it's a different whole type of thing. And it's very different. Yeah. And I don't script it, so I think about what I might say, but I kind of just.
Do some DJs script their patter?
No. I don't. Well, not at WKZE. I don't know how it works in most, but I don't think so. I think they have to hit certain. You have to hit certain marks. You have to talk about certain things. I have to do the weather twice during my 5 hours. I have to promote certain sponsors and product, things like that, and and then I just talk about what's ever on my mind.
Are you doing all the sort of engineering as well? You're pressing the button to play the no.
Well, I do. Yeah, I do play the. Yeah, like I'll go. I'll get the music going again and all that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that I do. But I don't. I can select music, but there's somebody who does most of that, and then I can just kind of pick things on the fly as well.
And you mentioned your audience. Who is the audience for your show?
Wow, that's for WKZ or for my particular hour. I don't think I have my own audience.
For your show.
It's not like, I think it's the people that listen to my show are listening. Here's the thing: they have very loyal listeners. And those folks have a real loyalty and a real love of that station, because they play stuff that's it's not like algorithms. It's human beings choosing songs for the most part, and they play deeper cuts off albums, or they'll play like, you get Norah Jones. We play Norah Jones. It's not great. Or Sheryl Crow or Brandi Carlile, somebody. You'll hear them on mainstream radio stations. So we try to find those artists that are, like maybe similar in terms of their doing a singer-songwriter vibe or something like that, but that you don't hear on mainstream radio, but that we think people would love. And we bring a lot of people into the station to play live. I don't do that during my shift, but I would love to do like some sort of interview with people, and I'm sure I will. But most part, the listenership is mostly Hudson Valley people, and I don't know all the demographics, but
and any idea what percentage is on the airwaves on 98.1 and what percentage is on WKZE.com?
Oh, you mean streaming versus?
Yeah.
I don't know the numbers, but the streaming is definitely growing faster than, no doubt. The streaming audience is growing faster than the terrestrial,
right,
as they call it, audience. But they, and what's great, they're also so entrenched. All of the sponsors, all the advertisers on WKZ are, with almost any exception, is local businesses, independently operated mom and pop businesses. So it's you have all these partnerships that are real partnerships. Like they support us, we support them.
So you don't have
Van Cleek's tires,
right.
and I know you have on. What's the mechanic you bring on to your
Mark Vandekar.
Mark Vandekar, yeah. But we have on, and then also like all sorts of restaurants and you name it, And so it's just it's an old fashioned,
It's a wonderful
approach to
station.
doing it. And, even if you don't love all the music, it's still something so worth supporting because it's, we like this operation here, Radio Free Rhine Club. It's so it's independent, spirited, and I'm independent is a big word in my life, right?
Yeah.
So I'm realizing how I'm entrenched in independent things,
right. And being yourself, and which camp allows you to do, and other things. Mm-hmm. So back to KZE. I'm guessing like maybe over 4 hours of music in a 5-hour shift.
Right.
You've got other stuff, advertising, the weather.
Exactly.
And you're picking that music?
We have a music director,
okay,
Rick, and he also does the morning drive show. Mm-hmm. And he's essentially responsible for getting the music. And then, like I say, if today, for instance, I'm going to, after my big premiere in a few minutes, in a little while.
Which, let's just plug that now.
Okay,
big premiere coming up here at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
On radiofreerhinecliff.org.
Yeah.
Adam Schartoff, not Alan Schartoff, will be premiering your show. It's called Filmwax.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the podcast. We're just going to do it live here as much as I can. We have coming on today this organization called Hudsey, and they make media from local filmmakers, and it's like a distribution model for local Hudson Valley filmmakers and media makers, so content makers. So they're coming here in just a few to be on the first show, and then I got on the second one. I've already lined up Mayra Blaustein, who is the co-founder and executive director of the Woodstock Film Festival and an old friend. And then on the third, we're going to have Dana Pollan, who is he the chair or dean of the NYU Film?
Not now, but maybe.
He's a professor at NYU, a film professor at NYU, and an author, a very prolific film book author. Mm-hmm. And I got to pick up a couple of those books. He's going to be on the third show, which will be, I guess, on the 24th. Is that the 24th? I think it's 17th. Excuse me, I misspoke. So those are the first 3 shows. And then I've also spoke to Chris Silva, who runs the Bardavon. And he's agreed to come on. I don't know if he'll come up in person or if I'll have to do that one remotely. But, I'm trying. I love this opportunity to make the show a little bit more regional, Yeah. It's nice. It's nice to have that. Even though I'm,
make this show a little more regional?
Well.
You mean to expand it from sort of the hyper-local to the regional?
Hyper-local, what's that? Like, does that mean
well,
the world is a small network of people now?
I've interviewed 3 people who live within 100 feet of here.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. Well, and I still want to bring on, film actors and film cinematographers, editors, and, distributors and exhibitors. I had on recently Greg Lemley, who is part of this dynasty family who run the Lemley theaters in LA. They have all these independent film theaters, and the Peter Familius of the Lemley family started Universal Studios back in the beginning of one of the original founders of Hollywood.
Right.
And so he comes from that lineage, and he was on. So that was a real treat to bring somebody like that on. So I'd like to continue doing that, obviously, but I love the idea of also being able to incorporate this opportunity to do the show out of here and bring in folks that are, because there, as you said at the beginning, there's a really just amazing number of filmmakers and film industry people, and adjacent to
so many
into here. Yeah,
so many. Now you've got an IMDb page with some credits, I guess, acting and producing and directing.
I through the years, I've been approached a couple of times about doing a little acting. I'm not a very good actor. I mean, I think I can act if the situation works right, if everything works out right.
Right.
But I need time because I'm very self-conscious, like anybody, or you haven't trained your muscle. So in a few times, you'll see me at the very beginning being very awkward looking, and then over time, and then all of a sudden I'm Laurence Olivier by the end of the film. So no, but I've done a few small things, and then which have been great opportunities to see really good actors. like professionals up close, right there, and to see that's been fun. And then I've done other things on sets, and I helped associate produce a film a friend of mine made with oh damn it,
What's so nice, all of the
Arquette, not Patricia, but the Roseanne Arquette. Thank you.
Right.
And
so this must help inform your questions for your guests on your podcast.
yeah, I mean, it all feeds into each other. And then there's been a couple of other like films that I've been involved with. Yeah, I guess a good half dozen, 2 or more films, and I've tried to launch a couple of things that I haven't really gotten off. It's I don't know. I was going to do a short. I was ready to go. I had written a short. I was going to direct him, and he was one of the actors in the short film, a comedy. And then I got a producer and had everybody lined up. We had even made a kind of a fundraiser video, and then it was March 2020.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah. So I keep getting close, and then I would love to do it though, but I don't know. Like right now, it's just with everything going on, it seems I don't think I'd be able to dedicate the kind of attention to make it happen when you're working full time, and
right.
And I have to be at the radio station like every day.
5 days a week.
Yeah, I mean, I can take time off, of course, but
and then you're doing your podcast.
But there's always time to do a podcast.
Now you've done like
I don't mean to marginalize the podcast. It's a through line in my life, which I have a passion about.
Right, and you've done like 740 of them
over 12 years. Yeah, but I was doing a lot early on, very shorter ones at the start, so they kind of got to a large number pretty quick, like 100 down in a year or two, and then I since I've kind of do one a week essentially, but it's been 12 years, so you do amass. I mean, but there are people doing podcasts that are twice that number nowadays because Mark Maron and others are ridiculous how many.
And you listen to many other podcasts?
Yeah, but I don't listen to film podcasts too much. I do a little bit, but I mostly listen to political podcasts. I'm obsessed.
Our own Andy Ostroy.
I do listen to Andy's show. He gets some wonderful guests on.
And some political commentary.
Oh, yeah, a lot. And I love these guys. By the way, Matty and Jen, really astute. I mean, I probably shouldn't do it. I don't know that I could do it. It's like, how no matter what you do, Norm, you always look to somebody, like the grass is greener. Like, so you do, like your show. Like I do a film show, but I wish I could do a political show. Like you just want to always feel like a step up. To me, it feels like a step up. You have to be so knowledgeable and prepared. And I guess I am. I mean, I can't, for film talk, I am. You can ask me, except for, Roseanne Arquette's name, you can ask me just about anybody. I probably can do some, and I read a tremendous amount about film history. So that way I can talk to people that come on and wing it,
books and magazines. Are there publications, periodicals that you read religiously to keep up on what's happening?
More now. I read more books more than anything, and I keep up with new books. And bring on, and they're my favorite guests are the authors. I love bringing on the film authors. I've had some great ones that are among my favorite guests. So.
Mm-hmm. So you read those books. What other prep do you do for one of your podcasts?
Well, there's the macro and a micro answer. For that particular thing, I read up about, like you do. I read up on the guest, and I try to get as much information as I can about them. And then also I try to watch as much of their films. So I watch the one, usually, like if I bring on a filmmaker, it's because they have a new film. It's coming out in a couple of weeks, and they're promoting it, and that's how I get them on the show, through publicists often. And so I see the film, and then I try, and then I read up. There's usually press materials about the film, so there's talking points in there. And then I also try to see as much of their work as I can. And often I've seen it, because I see a lot of films. I have to see, as my girlfriend will attest, and yeah, I know a shite load of films, but she'll attest to, like, there's always, like, if I don't watch a film a day or something close to that, I'm falling behind.
Wow.
And because you also want to, and then you want to rewatch classics, I have to keep them fresh. I have to be able to recall. I feel like you're sitting with somebody and they bring up Citizen Kane, to use a very popular example of it.
Wouldn't look good to not be up on that.
To remember Yeah, that Greg Toland is the cinematographer or something like that.
Right.
And then what else Greg Toland has shot, or and you can talk about it.
Well, so
like that.
So apart from My Dinner with Andre, thanks again.
Yeah, which I love. I love
what
it.
film do you think you've seen?
And by the way, Andre was on my show.
Oh, really?
Years ago. Yeah, that was a highlight. And I once walked up to Wallace Shawn in a coffee shop on University Place, and I approached him very carefully because we're out in the in public,
Out in the wild.
And I just went and I said, I really enjoy your work. And he was like, "Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate." So, he's a lovely guy.
Yeah.
But Andre, Jesus Christ, there I go again. So I've been drinking red wine like mad over here. So forgive me for I'm dropping names.
Andre Gregory.
Of course, Andre Gregory. He was also fantastic. There was his wife, Cindy Klein, made a documentary about him some years ago, and that's how I got him on.
Well, so back to my question. What movie do you think you've seen more than any other?
Oh, that's a great question. It's probably The Godfather, or it's probably like, a couple of my other favorites that are very popular. The Conversation has always been one of my favorites, and we just lost Cindy Williams, who was in that movie. She played a central role in that film, and she was on Laverne and Shirley. That's one of my favorites. It's one of those paranoid conspiracy movies from the 70s that were very popular. John Cazale's in it.
I think we're ready for a fresh batch of paranoid conspiracy movies.
Yep, except that it's not fiction anymore.
They could produce them all in Florida.
Yeah, that's right. See, we could talk about that, but I have to focus on my show coming up, so I don't want to get all bitter.
Right.
So that's one. One of my favorites is Dr. Strangelove. I think that is. I gotta watch that again soon. That is. Each time I see it, I just fall more in love with it. Like it's just
right.
And there's the Peter Sellers performance in it, and just everybody in that film is incredible. George C. Scott, it's my favorite thing he's done. One of my favorite things.
I haven't seen that in forever.
Yeah,
but I don't have to. Nobody expects me to know any of that stuff. So that's Kubrick, and you mentioned Coppola. Are they some of your favorite directors?
Well, sure, of course. Yeah, I mean they're at the top, and what else? I mean, I also just love these one-off. Elaine May is one of my favorites. She's not prolific. She's made very few films. But her films, almost, I haven't seen Ishtar in a little while, but aside from that, which was, widely trashed because of its, over the top budget, and it's kind of feels like, Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman were kind of just having fun winging it, but it's a better film than that. And but I don't think I
saw it.
Oh, well, you don't need to rush.
Yeah.
But her other films are among my favorites, and I could go on and on. I mean, but all those stellar filmmakers that are so popular, they're for a reason, because they made some great films. Some of my favorite films are by Robert Altman, and
he did MASH, I think.
He did MASH,
which I just saw a year ago.
Right, that holds up over and over.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
it was so good.
It is great.
So good.
Yeah, and
also I saw Catch-22. I don't know who directed that.
Mike Nichols directed that, and it is. I think that's a great film, even though again it was trashed. Orson Welles is in it. He gave Mike Nichols such a hard time. This is where the film history comes up. You see, he did a 1 day or 2 days on that set, Orson Welles, and he was giving Mike Nichols such a hard time. But Mike Nichols was very self-confident, but he was like, okay, he was being polite to it's Orson Welles,
like telling him how to direct.
Oh yeah, Orson Welles had an ego like crazy, but I think that Mike Nichols kept his cool and was very polite and courteous to Orson Welles. But what a cast in that movie, hey?
Yeah, amazing cast and a great story, and really, really held up, and really good rendition of the book.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's true. It stands up on its own, but it's also a great adaptation. And that's, again, one of my favorite filmmakers, Mike Nichols. I love Mike Nichols, And, I watched Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which was out of the gate his first feature. I mean, that's crazy that he made that movie.
Yeah, I just watched that a couple of months ago.
Unbelievable.
Super heavy movie.
Oh, yeah.
So
and then he
heavy.
goes and does The Odd Couple on Broadway. I mean, his track record was. You should read a book about him. That guy had an incredible career.
And
Incredible.
is there a book?
And he had no hair. A lot of people don't know that he wore a wig, but he spent a lot of money on it because it looked real. He had no hair on his
no
body.
hair on his body.
He had a whatever the condition.
Alopecia or
I guess it's like that if it's not that.
something.
Yeah. And he had
Wow.
and so from a young man, at a young age, he had to get a wig and paint on the eyebrows, whatever he did.
Is your hair real?
No.
Yeah, it's a great wig. It's really top shelf wig.
It's the Mike Nichols line. I mean,
Mine's Mike Nichols' line too. That's why I asked.
We have two good heads of hair here.
Yeah. Is there a book in you?
I've fantasized about it, but I don't know. It's overwhelming. I think I would love to do it. I just have to find the right subject. Yeah, I would love to do it. I mean, I have a certain people I would love to, like one of my favorite indie filmmakers is Jim Jarmusch. I love his films.
I met him once.
You did?
Yeah.
See, I have not. I've been in the same room with him a number of times. But
I met him a bunch of times, and I can tell you a story. Since it's radio, I was a stand-in for Bill Murray in The Dead Don't Die. That zombie flick that they filmed around here. And at one point, I'm standing and I'm sitting in the police car, and they're framing it. And Jarmusch comes over. He says to one of the people, working with him, he says, "Make sure the radio is on 91.1." And I'm like, "WFMU." And he says, "Woof moo," and walked away. That was my moment with Jim Jarmusch. It was so good.
Wow. Well, maybe you can. Maybe he'll remember you. And you can put in a good word.
I'm sure he does. I can't imagine.
He doesn't do press very much. And I've actually circled around. Like I was in touch with his brother, who's also a filmmaker, Tom Jarmusch, and his girlfriend, Sarah Driver, who is a filmmaker.
Right.
So I was, circling and trying to what's the word? Ingratiate myself. But I never got it going. Well, I don't know. I haven't been able to get Jim Jarmusch. But I've had on a lot of my other heroes on my podcast, or I've met them through whatever screenings.
And who were some of the heroes?
Well, I mean, people that were making films when I was coming up, like as a young guy, because I kind of grew up watching the movies my parents were watching, which we did in when we were young, right? There wasn't a whole industry around children's films. I mean, there was the occasional Disney film, but that was it.
Once a year, The Wizard of Oz,
would come out, or Sound of Music you'd see, but there wasn't this cottage industry of Pixar and DreamWorks and all the others. So you would see James Bond, or you'd see the latest Peter Sellers. Panther movies or whatever, those were considered kids movies, even though adults went to them too.
Right.
But I would go, and my parents were really into foreign films. They moved into, from New Jersey, and they were kind of bohemian types. They had met in art school, and they loved foreign films, and they were starting to come on PBS, and they were just starting to come into the city. And so I grew up kind of watching them with my, or aware of them anyway. It wasn't until I was a little older till I started to really appreciate them. But when I was in my 20s, I discovered it was just lined up with the explosion of independent film that, let's say we know She's Gotta Have It.
Right.
Right. Hal Hartley, Spike Lee, Jim Jarmusch.
Right.
Susan Soderbergh, Desperately Seeking Susan, all those films. And then there were all these art films coming in from England and Europe at the same time. We were getting, it was an incredible time, and there was no streaming, and VHS was a thing, but it wasn't a big thing. So there was this explosion of wonderful, art house coming into New York City when I was a young adult. And you just couldn't see enough of these films, since that was really the beginning of my love for it. So to bring on some of these people, I mean, it's probably too many to mention, but I brought on quite a few of them onto my show, and I don't have all the names in front of me, so I would make a jerk of myself. But yes, and I became friends with Hal Hartley because he lives in New York City, and he agreed to come on and do an hour show, and then the next thing you know, I have everybody from his films coming on, including an Edie Falco and all those other people that was So, I was geeking out to that. It's been an incredible time. So I guess I should write something about that because it's a personal story in a way,
Yeah.
How cinema kind of became this thing for me, I don't know, that opened up all this.
And when you were a kid watching these movies with the folks, you got a sibling or?
Yeah, my sister. I have a sister, older sister.
Was she there watching the movies with the parents as well?
Well, maybe a little bit, but not much. She was much more social. I was more of a homebody.
Sitting on the couch. And were there movie watching protocols in your house?
No.
Like you can't talk or
no.
everybody else or
No.
You got to have popcorn or
No, nothing like that. I don't really remember anything like that at all. It was pretty laid back.
And after you moved out, did your parents ever come into town and sort of go to the art houses and watch movies with you?
Yeah, and I would my parents liked that I started to, I would go see, I'm trying to think of a good example. Do we have how much time we have? But where, I would go out and see some film, and then I would just love it so much. Like With Nell and I, or something, I don't know, some great, film. And then I would I would tell my parents, they always loved my suggestions. They, started to realize that, he's more plugged in. So, and I would take them to movies. They would always, have a great time. So, and one of the big films that changed my life, and I talk about this on my podcast sometimes, is Stop Making Sense. Jonathan Demme, this documentary, if you can call it that, concert film of Talking Heads.
And it's a funny film to
away.
change your life. How did that change your life?
I don't know. It just did. It was like this just powerful, visceral experience going into the movie theater and then seeing that David Byrne in that suit and on the stage, and just how the film has its own arc to it. And it was just powerful film. I don't know. And also I was into Camp Thoreau, the folk songs. And then all of a sudden I fell in love with this, sort of new wave kind of post-punk kind of sound that really changed my whole thinking. It rewired me a little bit. And then I just something about it's so incredibly directed. Nobody else could have made that film than Jonathan Demme at that particular moment.
And he did Swimming to Cambodia too, I think.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Which was a huge movie in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't blame you. Yeah. I know. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a wonderful documentary about again, just jump in anytime.
Yeah.
Swimming to Cambodia. Just throw the name out. Spalding Grace. I remember it on my own, thank God. It's sort of arbitrary what comes and goes at any moment. Anyway.
Let me just interrupt. I mean, do you fear dementia in your own brain?
No, I don't. I don't think about it too much.
I do.
Or I
do all the time.
I forget. That's the problem.
Yeah, you forget to fear this thing.
Yeah.
Well,
no, and it's
hats off to you.
I can't. My grandmother had it too. My mother's mother, and so I don't know. But I feel like I really push myself all the time. Mentally. I don't know. Maybe that makes no difference at all. But I just feel like I'm just sharper than I am actually sharper, and my recall is actually better than it's been, and more. I don't know, most of my life.
And to what do you attribute that?
Just thinking about very few things a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sorry to interrupt. You were talking about a documentary about Spalding Gray.
Oh yeah, no, there's this beautiful one. It's called Everything. It's by Steven Soderbergh actually, and it's I don't have the title. It's something that he repeated over and over in, and Everything is Fine. It's called, and Everything is Fine. Which may not have been Swimming to Cambodia, but it was one of his monologue films.
Okay. Monster in a Box, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those things got pretty troubled. It's like, you're having a lot of trouble, and you're talking about it.
Yeah. It's a remarkable guy. I'm just one of the big tragedies.
Oh, so sad. Well, I'm just going to use this transition. You're a remarkable guy, too, and I'm so thrilled you came here to be with us. We're almost at the end of our hour. And I wanted to use the final seconds to plug your show, which is coming up next, Filmwax, it's called, and you're going to be here talking to whom?
Laura Candell and Jesse Brown, who are both in or work for HUTC, which is the Hudson Valley, media content organization.
We'll have a great show. I'm going to stand right outside the Nook, razzing you, and knocking on the door and stuff.
Great.
The Dustin Hoffman scene in the Graduate, I think. Well, I'm thrilled that you came. It's Adam Schartoff.
Yes.
Have a great show. Welcome to Radio Free Rhinecliff.
Thanks, and you'll come on.
Okay.
Co-host
good.
anytime.
I really don't talk. I don't talk about myself. And everybody out there, thanks for tuning in to Correct Me If I'm Norm, and have a fabulous Friday. Stay tuned.
Thank you.